The day after I graduated high school, I showed up at the door of Signcraft, a local sign shop. I had a photo album in my hand of all the things I had lettered, and I was looking for a job. A couple of weeks later, I got a call from the owner, Howard Nelson, and ended up working there for a few summers and learned a lot from him. Howard was an extremely experienced and highly skilled sign painter whose work was always clean and readable without anything terribly intricate or distracting. His style was typical old school, disciplined, and straightforward. He was a true master. Although Howard didn't letter a whole lot of race cars, he did letter several cars for Bob Girardi, most notably the iconic number 4 Gigolo chassis Camaro. The first summer I worked for him, we lettered a large highway billboard for Hibbing Raceway, which has long since been taken down. Howard started getting into vinyl lettering shortly after I stopped working there. Thankfully, I had the opportunity to work with such a veteran of the craft before he fell into the grips of vinyl. Howard Nelson, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Well, first I'd like to start off by saying thank you for hiring me when I was just a young kid right out of high school and taking me under your wing and working in your shop for a couple summers. It was really beneficial to me and I learned a lot working for you, and I really appreciate that and I'm forever grateful, so thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
So how old are you now?
I will be 91 this month.
Well, almost happy birthday to you.
Almost, okay.
Why did you get started in sign painting?
It's something I like very much. I was taking art courses and I thought sign would tie in with it very good.
When you owned your sign shop in Hibbing, do you remember what year you started that business?
Well, I become a partner of Rich Wright, and he had a sign shop in Virginia. So I joined him and we became partners in the business. And I worked with him for until about I would say possibly 1970, and then I decided to go back to Hibbing because I was living in Hibbing. I started a sign shop then called Signcraft.
You were strictly all paint for many, many years, and then at the end of your career you got into vinyl a little bit.
Yes.
What's your opinion on hand lettering compared to vinyl lettering?
Well, hand lettering, there's a little more, just a bit more work to it, and more practice and studying it.
Did you feel that hand painting is more of an art?
Definitely.
What made you go to vinyl?
Well, I guess because people were requiring it. You found very few people that wanted to stay with paint when vinyl came out.
What year did you close the shop up and retire?
Well, that was about 12, 13 years ago. I went in for an operation for cancer, and I thought I might as well put up the shop for sale. But I lived through it, and slowly I thought I would get into the sign business again on a smaller basis, but I I really didn't.
Now, I know you lettered some race cars for Bob Girardi.
Yep.
Do you remember Bob Girardi?
Yes, very well. And I lettered for some of the other racers too.
Okay.
Throughout the years.
A lot of Bobby Girardi's cars, up until the very end, were cars that you lettered, and they actually became quite iconic. A lot of people remember those cars, and you were the guy who did the painting on them and the lettering.
Oh, yeah. The thing I've always thought of while I was doing artwork is that first thing I wanted was quality. I wanted something that was good, stood out, and laid out nicely. And why advertise something if you can't read it, you know?
Brothers Nick and Joe Provenzino both entered the sign painting trade towards the twilight of the hand lettering era. They used to assist me from time to time until they acquired the ability to set out on their own. Occasionally, we would join forces under the name the Bonzoli Boys, so we could quickly knock out jobs during the busy month prior to racing season. These were just some of the cars that we lettered as a team. I'll never forget the great times that we spent working together. These are some of the cars that Nick has hand lettered. He currently operates his business, Nick Signs, out of Hibbing, where he wraps a handful of race cars each year with vinyl. These are cars that Joe hand-lettered years ago. He has since turned to strictly vinyl and wraps nearly 50 cars each year under the name Joe Signs.
I always loved art and drawing, and I just thought that was the coolest thing to watch somebody fill in numbers, and I loved racing, so it kind of went hand in hand. Watching you hand letter mailboxes and cars at a young age, and I thought, man, I might as well just keep following you around and might as well try it. Hand lettering versus vinyl, I would say today is that the look of the stiffness of a layout versus the look of a looseness of a layout, that's somebody that knows what they're doing, that's held the brush, versus somebody that's not. It's the artist. You can see a nice looking sign that's done with vinyl that a person that has an artistic ability did the layout, that you can pick out. But somebody that has a computer and typing in numbers and letters and not adjusting things properly, that's the stiffness.
What and when was the first race car you lettered?
Well, hand lettered with you since age 11.
Do you remember what the first car was?
The first car that it was number 69. We did it on Town Line Road. I can't remember the driver's name, but it was a blue car with yellow letter, chrome yellow letter with a red outline. This is the first car that you actually let me touch with a brush.
Roger Kasperi.
Correct. That's it.
What and when was the last car that you hand lettered?
The last car, I would say that was probably with you, and I would say it was probably Mitch Johnson's 00. It was white. We did the green and the neon fades and all hand. That's the car, and I can't remember what year that would be, though. I can't.
Why did you make the switch from paint to vinyl?
Well, you had to, after I moved from Hibbing to Minneapolis, the volume and the customer base, you just couldn't keep up with paint. So that was a real reason, but I still use 80% of hand layout eye stuff today for my prints and wraps to make them as hand letterish as I can. I learned a lot what to do and what not to do. And I think in the end, after such a long run of 30 plus years of doing this, I think it worked out. But forever thankful of all the funniness and road trips and cars we got to do.
Shane Johnson was a budding young artist whose race car lettering abilities were just starting to blossom until his unexpected passing at only 39 years old. I had many conversations with him about lettering and offered my input several times when he asked me for advice. He was starting to develop a modern form of eye-catching lettering with his own cutting-edge style of background graphics. Shane would have been destined to mature into a great sign painter had he not left this world too soon. For the most part, professionally hand-lettered race cars have gone the way of the dinosaur, with the exception of an occasional hand-lettered car now and then. This January, I lettered a road rally-themed race car for Motor Trend TV. It was a tribute project for a television show rather than an actual race car. I lettered my own Hams Hornet back in 2019, which was more of a novelty than a necessity. You would have to go back about 15 years before that to find the last legitimate oval track race car I did lettering on for a paying customer. It seems that technology, good or bad, has replaced the traditional sign painter like so many other things. Many people say that they prefer the look of a hand-lettered race car over that of a vinyl or wrapped race car, as it's referred to these days. I think that a car can look good either way. It just depends on the skill and imagination of the person doing the work. I do, however, feel that hand-lettered race cars had a certain appeal to them. With a brushstroke here and a slightly crooked line there, or a letter style that just looked handcrafted, there was a human element behind all the slight imperfections. All sign painters had their own individual style that showed through in their work, almost as unique as a fingerprint. To this day, I can still identify Howard Nelson's Casual or Scott Kittner's Script with near certainty. It's anyone's guess who the creator is on most vinyl-wrapped cars. I feel that modern wraps just lack the personal touch. They are almost robotic with the laser precision lines, identically matched letters, and some really awful looking letter styles. Oftentimes, they just come across as being a little too stiff for my taste. Back in the days of hand lettering, much to the behest of the artist, small groups of spectators would frequently assemble in garages and huddle around the cars while they seemingly came to life at the hands of the sign painter. The lettering job was an all-day event that people looked forward to, and they watched with amazement at the skill and efficiency of the brush holder. Lettering day was cause for celebration, a reward for a long winter's work, where the driver and crew would enjoy a few cold beverages and relaxed while they watched the finishing touches get carried out on their shiny new chariot before they brought it into battle. Nowadays, pre-made vinyl sheets get applied to the car in relative obscurity. Within a few hours, the wrap is installed, the car sports a number, several sponsors, and all too often, an overabundant mess of confusing graphics get left behind, rendering most of the actual lettering unreadable. A young kid with an artistic interest can no longer experience the process of race car lettering being created one step at a time. The main objective of race car lettering is to be read from a distance. Nothing is wrong with a little creativity, but sometimes less is more. Most race cars could go without all the checkers and flames and lightning bolts and whatever else might be eagerly waiting to clog up an otherwise nice design. It completely defeats the purpose if the number and sponsors are not clearly visible due to the letter style, color choice, and excessive background noise. In general, lettering needs to be clean and readable, a task that a computer itself cannot accomplish. Hand lettering has been described as being dead or a lost art. Although it isn't as common as it used to be, it is still alive and well. You just need to look in the right places. As far as vinyl lettering goes these days, some providers would be well served studying the work of Joe Posernich and Howard Nelson.
Make it readable. That's very important. Why advertise if it isn't? So I always had that in my mind when I was designing something.